Another trend week up into new all-time highs. In this week's trading plan, I'll talk about where I'm looking to buy the dip and what might signal a short-term pullback. Most of last week was spent inside a range, trading around the 6704 pivot with one shallow dip into 6682, which was bought. So we continue to see very strong buyers and sellers unable to get any lower than our very first dip buy pivot at 6682. Holding 6682 and then reclaiming 6704 and 6716 took ES on a strong rally into new all-time highs, and we spent Thursday and Friday forming a new base in the shape of a broadening formation above the prior all-time high and rejected 6800 on Friday. Again, in this very strong bull trend, it's always best to continue to find areas to buy the dip, continue to try to position long until the market gives us a strong signal that it's ready to pull back, which is generally the failure of a prior day low, a failed breakout at the top, which then fails a prior day low, and especially the failure of a prior week low, which we have not been able to see for many weeks now. Last week we saw a lot of demand in this 6696 to 6704 area, and the best long setups were reclaims of 6704 and 6716, which took us into the back test of 6745, and then that's what triggered the rally on Wednesday into new all-time highs. On the short side, fewer overall opportunities, although the direct rally into the back test of 6745 did see a nice rejection, as well as some opportunities on rejections of 6784, and then finally the rejection of the top of the megaphone on Friday at 6800. So where does this put us for next week? So far we've been building a new base above the prior all-time high at 6757, so we want to keep our bias long as that prior all-time high area holds, and the Thursday and Friday lows will be important early on next week around 6741 and 6757. The first signal that we could be in for the beginning of a pullback would be the failure of that prior all-time high at 6757, and then really the failure of this Friday low at 6741. If that area were to fail, likely would open up rotation towards the bottom of the megaphone, and then potentially this back test of this demand zone at 6696 to 6704. Now, the more significant pullback and the more major short signal would be the failure of that demand zone at 6696, which could really open up the downside, potentially reverting all the way down towards that 6619 area, and especially that swing low from FOMC at 6611. For continuation up next week, bulls want to defend those Thursday and Friday lows, potentially put in a failed breakdown there, continue to base under 6784, and then try to hold above there for continuation to new all-time highs and another test of the top of this megaphone. The economic calendar is lighter until the end of the week next week, with Powell speaking on Thursday and potentially non-farm payroll data on Friday pending resolution of the government shutdown. Now let's talk about the top setups and trade ideas for the next week. Now we had 100 points of range last week, so I won't be surprised if we see some large rotations inside the prior week range. So early on in the week, I'll be watching for failed breakdowns of the Thursday and Friday lows, and I will keep a long bias targeting all-time highs as long as those areas hold. If we see a pullback, I would be looking for longs near the bottom of the megaphone into that 6704 area. And always want to be mindful of looking for a failed breakdown at the prior week low. If we sell through 6680, watch a reclaim of that area for reversion back up into 6704 and potentially higher. On the short side, I would watch for a rejection at the top of the megaphone, which will start out around 6815 early in the week, especially if it triggers a look above and fail of the Friday high, which could then see rotation back down into 6715 and lower. Failure of 6745 would be a short trigger, that the 6745 and the Thursday low, which could see rotation down into the bottom of the megaphone. And then if we do get a lot of range expansion next week, if you see the failure of 6696, especially the failure of the prior week low, you could look short for that larger pullback into 6619. Certainly many different paths next week, so it's always best to watch the price action at key areas and let price tell us what it wants to do. That's how I'll be trading ES this week. If you want to trade live with us every day, join us at Trade with Insight.